we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado.
This is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
First time for our viewers getting to know you. And actually, I don't know you that well either. But it's nice to have a family friend across the table from us.
No, I think it makes me more comfortable, too, knowing that. And I mean, I know we don't know each other like that, but I've seen you around enough where I'm like, oh, it's all right, like,
yeah.
Cool. But then, for you, damn near like one of my uncles, too. So I'm like, oh, like, get to talk to Kevin. Like, this is cool.
Yes, make me feel old, of course.
Well, no. Okay, fine. Maybe one of my older brothers.
Okay. That works a little bit. Yeah, because, I mean, for the viewers and listeners, that follow us on social media and have been following this program a long time, they know that I played in a band called the Ridge Runners, and I had the privilege of playing with your father for many years. So I want to say I met you were probably, I've known your dad like maybe 12 years now. Mm-hmm. So you would have been like 12 or 13 when I first met you,
yep.
Which is hard to believe. Makes me feel like an old fart as I'm in my mid-30s now. But, it's a family ordeal.
Yeah.
Like we talked about with Jamie, who's been on this program many times. Folks know Jamie Rourke, of course, and his involvement with the success of Discussion Combustion. And, we've been trying to get your dad on for years. Where you at, Mike?
Yeah, Mike, what's going on?
He's such a solitary man, Come on, Dad. Let's get it going. No, I think that I never realized how much younger you were than the rest of the band.
Oh, he's the youngest in the entire group.
I've been the baby the whole time.
Yeah, he's always been the baby.
I never knew that up until like 2 years ago. Like I was having a random conversation with Uncle Jamie at the house, and I was bringing up people being old and making fun of people, and I brought your name up, and he looked at me and he was like, you do realize he's only like maybe 10 years older than you, like if that. I was like, oh, no, I didn't know that. So.
Yeah, hanging out with those guys, of course, because they're like 20 years older than me,
Mm-hmm.
so which was cool at the same time because these were guys that have done it, they've been in the business, they understood it. So for me as a young guy stepping into it, they taught me a lot about what was going on because I was the young guy. But as Samantha Rourke always said, her comment was, Kevin is the oldest young guy I've ever met. And thank you, Sam, for that.
I think it just shows your level of maturity in the way that you hold yourself, I think is what I've always noticed about it, is that you do carry yourself in a very, like, I know who I am kind of way. And I think that at any age, it is so hard to feel like you know who you are as a person. And so to be able to actually, like, let that, like, shine into the world, I think is probably the biggest thing. And it's one of my favorite things about you. I'm like, well, fuck, if he loves himself like that, then what the fuck's my excuse? Like, I need to do that too. So. Yeah,
thank you. That's a nice compliment. It's I think it's been helpful just surrounding yourself with the right people. Because when I moved to Colorado, I didn't know a lot of people. I really didn't. And you heard the story before we went on Mike about, how Art and I got hooked up and how this whole project came to be. And then I met your Uncle Jamie and met your dad. And, I've just been really fortunate to meet great people out here. I think that's the biggest thing. Like I say all the time, and like we said in the Ridge Runners, family and friends make you the richest man or woman or whatever. Like that value that you get from that is unmatched.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's amazing how, Kevin, I've seen you be the youngest, oldest person that I know and grow into an older, younger person that I still know.
An older, younger person?
An older, younger person, yes.
So I was the oldest, youngest, now I'm the oldest. Wait a minute. The youngest, oldest? Youngest, oldest, youngest?
Yeah, now you're an oldest, youngest. But it's fun. And that's what's fun about friends, too, is like, you get to poke fun, you get to like, so I'm curious, do you have friends that you've known for over 10 years?
Yes.
And you still communicate with them?
Yes.
That's rare.
And so when did you meet these people? Like how old, what grade or whatever?
So my friend that I was talking to you about earlier with this tattoo, Zakaya and I met when we were 5. So I was before kindergarten. And we had just gone to the same elementary school together. And were stuck like glue like that until then. Another dear friend of mine, Ayla, it was the same way. We met, I think like kindergarten or first grade,
Yeah.
and her parents lived right down the street from my great-grandparents. So we were always hanging out all the time, and then now Ayla and I are like sisters. Zakaya and I spent our entire lives together.
So that's awesome, and that's also rare. Like, and so that's one thing that I like to think about with the friend group that I have, because Kevin's the newest member, right? And I've known Kevin for like 14, 15 years, you know, so
I think we're
everybody,
about 15 now, yeah.
yeah, so everybody else, like, I've known for like 25, like a long time. But then as you kind of open up your circle, you make more associates in life, you know, maybe this person's worth talking to more and getting to know. Maybe I could help them out, because some people need help, just someone to talk to. Yeah. And then you realize that they have like 0 friends. And so to have friends from kindergarten, like, that speaks something about your character, but then also your friend's character. And I wonder what the percentage of people are out there in the world that have those long sustaining relationships like that. Like, what do you think the percentage is? Like, is it less? Is it under 50?
I think it's definitely generational. I think if, you know, so like my dad and Uncle Jamie, you know, they have friends that they've known 30, 40 fucking years, where, you know, they were out there 6th, 7th grade, you know, running around doing crazy shit together. Where I feel like with like my generation and my older siblings' generations, because my older siblings are all getting ready to turn 30 or just into their 30s, I don't think it's the same for us. I don't think that it's as easy to do that with us, and I think a lot of it does have to do with the internet now and social media, and but I also think it's all about understanding that people go through shit and you change so much over all of those years. I mean, I'm a completely different person than obviously I was as a kid, opposed to high school, opposed to right after I got out of high school. Just last year, I'm a completely different person.
But do you feel like fundamentally, like, even though like maybe your priorities have changed, maybe your like ambitions have changed, or some of your beliefs, but fundamentally you've stayed the same person? Because how else do those relationships, like, you know, stay so consistent? Like, I guess there's love and respect there, and like that, and you've never, I guess that's where it's going. I'm like brainstorming right now.
Yeah.
So the way that you have those long relationships, even if you change and develop, as we all should, is because you've never disrespected or shown distrust to that person. So even though you've changed, you've always treated them the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't want to go and say yes, because I'm not a perfect human. So the 2 friends that I just did bring up from early childhood, I have pulled some fuck shit and I have done some disrespectful shit, and, you know, but again, that's learning and growing up and being a kid. Like, you do stupid shit, you say stupid shit. I think my biggest thing on how I've kept the friends that I have, because I do have a lot of friends that I met my freshman year of high school, so this year will be our 10 years of knowing each other. Okay. And a lot of that, I think, is loyalty. I think loyalty is such a big deal. Like, it, to me and my friends, it doesn't matter if you got shitty one night, or you said shit while you're mad, or, you know, the bad part about it. It's what matters if you can come back and have a conversation and be like, oh my God, Kevin, I got drunk that night and I said some fucked up shit. I am so sorry. I promise it will never happen again. And so then that is the way that you can kind of combat that, you know, being disrespectful or having that, you know, negative part of it, but then still showing that you have your loyalty towards that friendship, where you're like, fuck, I fucked up and I need to go make that. I need to fix that in my friendship.
You made amends.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes a long way. I think when people can own it and own up to, hey, I fucked up, I said some silly shit. We've all been through it. Yeah. I mean, the stories that I could tell you, which I don't know if I'll do on the air, about the shit that I've been into with some of the people that we all know, were questionable. But we're men about it, right? You know, it didn't go necessarily well that night, but we fixed it. Yeah. You know, we made it right because we care about each other. So to speak to your point of loyalty, it's hard to find these days. I feel like it really is. And that's why I think my friend group, you know, speaking just on my behalf, are guys and gals that I've known for a long time. You know, I have a hard time bringing new people into the circle because the people I have around me is all I need. Yeah. You know, I don't really need to add anybody else right now. And, you know, not to sound like, you know, jaded or, arrogant, but like I don't really have room for new friends. I have my circle. I got the Beyond Blood guys. You know, I got everybody I need right now. You know, and I'm a busy guy. So, you know, I think loyalty goes a long way when it comes to long-lasting friendships, relationships, what have you. And, you know, that can segue into a very dark area of like social media and how that can have an impact on it, or, you know, whatever the case may be. This thing can get sideways pretty quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's hard for me growing up in that social media and that internet, you know, environment and that generation, because I remember being in middle school and in high school, and, you know, you post the wrong thing, or you're hanging out with people that your friends don't want you to be hanging out with, and now everybody in the school knows it, and it's just, there's no privacy to it. And that was hard because, you know, you're trying to learn yourself as a kid and as a young adult and how to be a friend or how to keep friends. And so it doesn't help when then somebody gets mad because you liked somebody's photo. Like, grow up. Like, it is not that serious.
Yeah, and it's like, it is tough. I mean, I didn't, like MySpace came out when I was like a freshman in college, right? So nowhere near as the involvement that you were dealing with in middle school, and it's all like a facade. Even still, as like a 36-year-old, and being able to know this, like I can see that like all this stuff on social media, like everyone's just posting. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Like I should probably post a bad day pretty soon. The problem is like I've been blessed recently only because I've been working really hard, and I don't really have too many bad days. But that's only because I worked hard at it, and like you still are faced with speed bumps or issues, but do you let speed bumps and issues become a problem, you know? And I don't allow that.
Well, I think that's a good point you bring up, Art, because, you know, you do a tremendous job with social media on motivating people and talking about, hey, man, let's get after it, let's do the day. You know, and something that we've always talked about on the show is kind of, you know, show the bad times as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously I talk to you almost every day, so I don't see a lot of those. But I'd be curious to see how you would respond, or maybe try to put some of that out there. You know, maybe if things aren't going well, because I mean, you see me when I'm at my worst. You know, I don't necessarily put that out there, but maybe I should. Not necessarily something I want to do, because I'm like I talked about, I'm not a big fan of the social media stuff anymore. But I don't know. I think it's good to show both sides, right, and not just focusing on the good. Let's also show the bad. It's a yin and yang. It's a positive, negative thing. You have to have it. You know, that polar opposite.
I have a problem with oversharing on social media. I'll give you my good day, my bad day, my amazing day, the ugliest day. I have no fear of
being unapologetically yourself.
Yeah, I have zero, because I'm also like, if you have something to say about my bad day, like, we're all human. Like, if that's how I handle my bad day, then that's how I handle my bad day. Like, I'm sorry if that's not how you handle it, and good for you, to each your own, but that's how I handle mine. The older I've gotten, though, I have definitely learned the repercussions and the consequences of oversharing on the internet. And having, you know, like, random people at parties and stuff that know me only from social media. Like, we've never met a day in our lives, but they follow me on whatever. And then coming up to me thinking that they can talk to me about something. And so then I get offended because I'm like, you don't know my business. But then I have to sit there and think back, like, okay, well, then why did you go and share your business for everybody to know? Like, that's your fault. So you can't be mad at them that, you know, they had the balls to come up to you and ask you about it, even they don't know you. Like, that's on you. So I think that that's been something I've had to learn with the social media. That's
a good point. Yeah, it's still weird to me when I bump into folks and they're like, I know you, I've seen you, I've heard you talk about this. I'm like, I don't, you know, it's weird. It's kind of a weird thing. But when you put yourself out there like that, of course it's going to happen. You're opening yourself up to scrutiny. You're going to have positive feedback. You're going to have negative feedback. That's just the world we live in. Yeah. I actually enjoyed the negative feedback. I think that brings me more joy than the positive, right? I don't need my ego stroked. I know who I am. You know, I like the people that are the haters. They're my favorite.
Haters are our motivators.
Bring it on.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing about, like, haters is, especially with my age group, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I am an extremely mature 24-year-old and have a really solid head on my shoulders compared to a lot of the 24-year-olds I do know. And so I kind of have a little bit of an ego trip sometimes, just knowing that, like, I do like have that maturity on me where I don't feel like I have to work so hard to be something on the internet because I just don't care. But I don't think I know a single other person my age that feels like that.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think I've known you long enough, and I think I've always kind of analyzed that you're a little bit mature, you know, for your age at that time. And I don't mean that like condescendingly, like I'm the old guy talking down to you. I've known you a long time, and I've always thought that, you know, going back to the times, you know, we were talking about a story last time we visited, you know, when I don't know how much we want to put out here on the air, but you crazy fucker, Mike, when we came over for a late night visit, me and Jamie,
Yes.
you know, and you were the only one of rhyme and reason on that night. You know, everyone else was just like, fuck this, let's full send. You know, and this was 3-4 years ago yet. So you were like 20 at the time.
Yeah.
So I've always admired that.
So I think trauma and a lot of things that I've been put through in my life has definitely made me that, you know, more mature person for my age. But I think that's always been my favorite thing, that older people, regardless how much older, 2, 4, 8, 20 years older than me, I think that's my favorite thing that people tell me, is that you are mature for your age. And I think that that just shows that I took the time to think about shit realistically instead of thinking about shit emotionally at a time in an age where it was appropriate for me to only think about things emotionally, and I didn't have to think about anything logically, but I did choose to think about it logically. One of my mom's favorite things to say about me is that I try to look at everybody's perspective and I try to look at everybody's lens before I make a decision or before I go on somebody's side or whatnot. I have to look at every side of the story. Again, that's childhood trauma. I can't sit there and be like, oh, well, this happened to me, and so only you did something wrong. Like, no, you did something wrong, but what instigated that? Like, what was that reaction from? And so I think that that's ultimately, like, what's helped me over the years try to think about everybody's point of view. And then now having all my friends and, you know, we get into fights and shit, and they're like, oh, well, that was wrong, and that's it. I'm like, no. Hold on, you're right, it was wrong, but then what did you do to react to it, or what did you do to instigate it, or could there have been something else that was done better? Which I don't even feel like your guys' age, anybody older, I don't feel like anybody fucking does that.
Oh yeah, no, you're definitely part of a rare few in society that considers others while considering their verdict. Right? That's what I picked up by what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that can be mature, but at the same time, I feel like that's just like a level of awareness. You know, because at any age, you can be aware of other people's emotions and sympathize with where they're coming from. You might not agree with where they're coming from. You might think that the end result was ludicrous and shouldn't have existed. But as long as you could rationalize it, you know, and look at it like that. So one thing that I really think is an important piece to solidifying individualism, right? Because is all the varieties of humans and how everybody is so, like, they're individual, but are they authentic? Like, who are you as an individual? And everyone is their own unique self, but are you actually being authentic as your unique self? And once you become your unique self, actually, once you recognize your unique self and you fully commit to it and you don't care what other people think, that's when you stop riding waves and you start creating waves.
Yes.
Because you don't care what anyone else thinks. You're going to do what you do, and you're solidified within yourself. You're centered. And within that, there is this freedom, and it's also scary at the same time because you have to stay authentic. Like, you can't just all of a sudden meet somebody else's agenda because it makes the situation comfortable. Like, you have to stay authentic and be yourself, still be respectful, but maybe you make that situation uncomfortable because you don't agree with what somebody's saying. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to talk about there, but the thing is that if you can stay authentic in life, then you're going to create waves for people to ride on and hopefully motivate some people along the way. Because if you can do it and just be like, who cares? I don't care what you think about me. I'm going to do me right now. Yeah. Like, people got to respect that. Even if they hate it, they still respect it.
Yeah. I think it's such a hard concept, though, for human beings to understand that, to understand the fact that everybody is their own person. Everybody is trying to just be themselves and be authentic. And I also think that in this day and age, the culture that we have, the over PC-ness, and that's coming from somebody who is in the LGBTQ community and all of that. Like, I even think that people are still way too PC, and that, you know, people don't need to get their feelings hurt as bad as they do. It's like, just let people talk their shit. Like, if you love yourself, love yourself. Let people talk their shit. But that's so much easier said than done, because we're humans. We're not meant to be alone. We're meant to have friends. We're meant to have family. We're meant to be, you know, herd animals.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And so that's so hard, though, when, you know, the leader of the herd is telling you that, you know, it's not cute if you have brown hair. I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
You know, and so it's
Something
hard.
so surface level, right?
It's so minute. So, like, it doesn't actually mean anything to where you're going to go in life. But the second that you get that criticism in your head, you can't get it out. That's all you think about.
So why do you think that is? Like, when people, because obviously if you're solidified in yourself and you're really like one with your own energy and you're authentic, why is it that, because I'm there too, like sometimes people will say something and it'll like rattle in my head a little bit. I'm like, why did they think that about me? Like, they don't know me.
Yeah.
You know, why do we get affected like that?
I personally think it is because we are, you know, we have that herd mentality. You don't want to feel isolated or singled out because you don't agree with something or you don't match somebody's, you know, view of how you're supposed to be. And especially when it comes to friend groups or your family or something like that. I think that that's something that I struggled with a lot once I started getting all my tattoos. Is I am hands down on both sides of my family the most tatted person on either one of my sides of my family. And that was, it's not something that my family was ever like, oh, don't get tattoos and oh, that's bad. But it definitely was always oh, are you sure that's a good idea? Or, are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I do. Like,
well, I'm going to go ahead because I like to be authentic. I'm going to say this to the camera. I support tattoos, but I'm not too sure about face tattoos.
ooh.
I'm just not too sure about those. And if you have them, like, I respect you for like running
like Post
that.
Malone.
Yeah, and you owned it. And even people that we know, like, you know, we know people that have face tattoos. I respect the fuck out of them, but that's not for me.
Yeah.
You know, so that's like one area where it's like I don't know.
I mean,
that's being too specific, though, I feel like.
You know, your body is your own fortress, and you know, you can do what you want with it, kind of thing, like art and things like that. I've never been to piercings. Never did piercings. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tats, you know, but most of them aren't visible. You know, I did it within like a way I can cover them up. Yeah. Not for any specific reason, just because I felt like that's kind of the areas I wanted in. But I think tattoos are fantastic. I think they're a lot of fun. You know, I'm constantly thinking about the next one that I want. You know, I think they're great. You know, and people should do what they want with their bodies.
The culture is so different on tattoos, though. I mean, compared to, you know, when I was a kid, knowing, you know, at 10, 12, because that was the first career choice I ever wanted. I wanted to be a tattoo artist forever, you know, running around as this little, like, 8-year-old girl, like, oh no, I'm going to be the next Kat Von D. Like, that's what I wanted to do with my, I thought it was the
coolest
thing. What was that, LA
Ink?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, gosh. And but that culture, even at that time, was so different. Like, because then you were still getting looked at if you were super tatted, like you were a fucking felon.
So I feel like I heard this percentage, and I'm not trying to cut your thoughts short, but it's like less than 30% of people have tattoos.
Yep.
Is that
so around a third?
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably an accurate stat. I mean, I don't know. I feel, you know, tats have just become a lot more accepted, especially in the workplace. Yep. You know, there was a lot of times where it was like, you can't have them show them. Now you see them showing. We got managers, store owners, what have you. I think a lot of people are doing it, and it's become more accepted than it once was. You know, back when we were young.
And it's also because the type of people that are in hiring positions and they're hiring managers are a younger generation right now. So as things continue, like the old norms of whatever was the norm, it's all going to change. And so that's one thing I have to just right now, okay? Because this is an old cliche that, like, I don't know where I heard this. Maybe I made it up one night when I was freestyling, but if you can't change with the times, then you will get left behind. And it's so true. I mean, with technology, with everything, like, we always must be coachable in a sense, or adaptable. Yeah. You can use as a different word, because tomorrow will not be the same as today was. Absolutely. Sure, it's going to be very similar because in the timeline it's extremely close. Mm-hmm. But if you think about 5 years ago, like who you were as a person, or who you were as a person, or myself as well included, like, I can only speak for myself. Like, I've made tremendous jumps and leaps within that 5 years, and times have changed, and I adapted to it. Yep. Or like, so it's like one of those things where it's like, with tattoos, yeah, you can get hired more easily now with tattoos than you could 10 years ago because more hiring managers are tatted.
I mean, that's a good point, Art. Everything's evolving. Everything's changing a little bit. Like you said, get with the times or get left behind, to an extent. Because we see a lot of things happening right now. And, especially, look, I'm a huge supporter of the LGBTQ movement. I support it. I want people to be happy. I believe in personal freedom and liberty. I'm a libertarian. I want people to be able to make decisions for themselves. But I think at some point we do kind of have to draw a line in the sand of what's going on with some of this stuff. Because I think there is things that are getting a little bit out of hand. Obviously, we're still supporting Bud Light. Of course. Thank you, Bud Light, for your contingency deal with us.
Thank you,
we
Bud
love
Light.
the beer.
Delicious beverage. Everyone out there who is boycotting Bud Light, it's a great beer. It's delicious.
Yep.
Continue, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, look, do I agree with Anheuser-Busch's move? And I talked about this a couple weeks ago. No, I don't think it was a smart move for this brand. I don't think it was a smart move. I've gone on record on this podcast several times that I support people's personal freedoms, liberties, choices. If you want to be trans, that's fine. Make that decision as an adult. That's where I stand on it. And, we say we were good. To me, this isn't really political. This is just a big topic. And I'm curious to hear your stance on this, Erin, because I like to hear where people are at on it. I like to know the truth, and the facts and all those kind of things. I respect Caitlyn Jenner, for what she did. I love Caitlyn Jenner. I think it's fantastic. But I think this trans stuff is starting to get a little dicey. And I'm not saying that I think...
What do you mean by dicey?
Well,
what do you mean by that?
Well, when we talk about what Colorado just did with, allowing folks to come into our state to have these genital mutilation under the age of 18 without parental consent, I think is a concern. I think it's worth having a conversation about. I don't think it's a free for all.
I think it should be. Look, when I was growing up, you could buy cigarettes at 18, right? And then, lo and behold, apparently now the age is 21 to buy cigarettes.
That's correct.
But then you can go and change your gender at below 18
Children.
age.
Children.
Yeah. So, freedom of choice, I agree with that.
As an adult.
And yes, as an adult. So if you are under 18, if you can't even buy tobacco
or alcohol
or
guns,
then how are you given the authority to
change your gender,
to go through this hormone injecting, completely body transform, when I was 19, I thought I had it together. I fucked up a lot since then.
Well, we all have.
And that's the thing is, by all means, if you're assigned the wrong gender at birth and you truly feel that, I feel for you, and you should have the freedom to choose, but you should be an adult. And I guess that's how we're getting political on this episode.
Go ahead, Erin.
Well, I think that a big thing that is misunderstood about gender reassignment surgery, especially for minors, and it's the same thing for over 18 too, but I think this is a big one that people need to understand for people younger than 18, is that it's not something that you can just go into a doctor's office and look at this doctor and be like, hi, this is how I feel, change me. You have to go through psychology appointments. You have to get a psychiatrist, a therapist to sign off on that. You have to get multiple doctors to sign off on that. It's not something that you can just go in and do. You have to have multiple professionals that have your back on that to be able to make that decision. I do full-heartedly agree that to go all the way to gender reassignment, so top or bottom surgery, you do need to be 18 and above. And I think that that's only as like a self-identity thing, because so many kids at that age go through body dysmorphia so bad, whether you're trans or not. We all go through that, right? And so I think that it's important to understand that part of your body first, but from the youngest age if this isn't you. So to be able to take your hormones, so to be able to do your testosterone shots or your estrogen shots, I don't see why you can't do that more as a kid. And I'm meaning for like transgender females, so they don't, or transgender males, so they're doing testosterone so that they don't get a period. That has to be so hard as a young, like if you feel like you're a young man and then to have a period, that has to be heartbreaking, and that has to be so hard to go through that, and it adds to that body dysmorphia. That does not mean that you now get to go and chop stuff off and do whatnot, but to be able to take your medicine to be able to more authentically feel you, I think is so important. But again, there's so much medical backing that you have to have for you to start doing that regardless of your age. And so if you have medical professionals on your side, I genuinely don't feel like anybody else should be able to have an opinion, because you have people who this is their job. We pay them to fix our health or to fix our noggins or whatnot. So just because you don't think it's right, and I'm not so big, just you don't think it's right, but a doctor who has that schooling, has that knowledge, and has put all that time, and they can tell you, no, like, this person's ready to go through that, so let's go ahead and do that. That, I feel like, should be the opinion that is valued when it comes to that.
So, prior to being an adult, taking, like, supplements or whatever it is, hormones, to fit your assigned gender that you feel like you should have been assigned, but not undertaking surgical procedure.
Yeah. I think that, and truly I only believe that the gender reassignment should only happen once you're over 18, again, because of the body dysmorphia thing. We all change so much as our bodies. I do not look the same as I did at 18 as I do at 24.
Yeah.
So if I knew a girl in high school who directly after we graduate, she went and got a BBL. Okay, darling, you are 17, 18 years old.
What is a BBL?
A Brazilian butt lift? You know, like Nicki Minaj and all that? Oh, them big old fat butts?
Where they put, like, the cheeks in?
Yeah.
They put cheeks in?
Yeah, or implant shots, whatever.
I don't know how I feel. Actually, I know how I feel about that, but I'm going to say it like I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm not a fan. I put it that way.
I'm not either.
I like natural. I like all natural. I mean, look, people need to do what they need to do, whether it's implants or plastic surgery. Folks do a lot of that stuff to make themselves feel comfortable and value themselves, and it gives them confidence, and that's all well and good. And I just think with the trans stuff, it's just concerning to me with the kids. That's where I have a problem with it. Adults can do whatever they want. I think everyone in this room can agree on that. At that point, where I get concerned is because I remember when I was young. I didn't know what I was. I was goth. I wore spiked necklaces, and I thought I was this. I thought I was suicidal. I was going through a lot of stuff, and it's a tough time as an adolescent to go through these things. And I guess my concern is there's so much of this being propagandized and influencing young kids' decisions on, their gender, right? They're being influenced more than what they're actually feeling, right? And I can't speak volume to it. I know times have changed and there's a lot of things going on, but I just don't know if I agree with these puberty blockers and these things that are going on. I think it's a little concerning. I think it's going to have some long-term effects that we're not aware of yet, because we're really just starting to get into, a lot of these drugs being, distributed to these children.
And just as another layer to this, because we talked about it earlier this episode, is the impact of social media and that sort of stuff too. So, and propaganda as well. Like let's just put it out there as it's not social media, it's propaganda. I'm a victim of propaganda.
We all are.
And growing up, this is what the boys do. And that, of course, that's what I did. So it's like, as a young American, when you're seeing all this, I don't know if I get in trouble calling it gender confusion or whatever. Like, I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of hate for this app.
But, no, I mean, look, I identify as a heterosexual male. So I don't understand all this completely. Like, I emotionally don't understand what it's like to feel misgendered. Yeah. Like, I don't get that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I don't understand that fully. And I'm happy to have a conversation about it. I don't disagree with it, but at the same time, we're just talking about the subject. And with how propaganda is all about, like as far as what young minds are fed, does that create an increase in the questionability of, am I the right gender? I feel like that's a fair question that isn't discriminative at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree with that 110%. I think that you can tell the difference between somebody who genuinely has known and has felt that they're in the wrong body opposed to people who are kind of confused about it. So other than the trans topic, I'm a great example. I just recently came out as fully gay just a couple months ago. A lot of that, thank you. A lot of that had to do with how I thought my family would react, which hysterically enough, I have not had one single family member that didn't look at me like, honey, we were waiting on you. We all knew, we were waiting on you. But it's hard because you don't want to feel like you're a disappointment just because you do something differently opposed to everybody else. And so it's kids like that where I do agree with the puberty blockers, and I do agree with stuff like that, because there is no reason that those kids should have to continue to fight for who they are. But that does not mean that you have to go and do, full on surgery because of it. Hormones can do just enough until, you can make that decision for yourself. Clothing is a huge deal. Makeup, the way you cut your hair, appearance-wise, that can be the slightest difference between a kid's life and then them choosing to end their life. And I think that that's what I wish people understood more, is the suicide rate with trans kids and trans kids under 18 and under 16. Mm-hmm. It is... And it genuinely, it changes every year. So I'm not even going to try to throw a number at you guys because it does. But it increases every year because these kids don't feel like they have that support system behind them to be a freshman girl or a freshman boy living their life as a freshman girl or a freshman boy. They feel like they're a girl, but they still have to go use the boys' bathroom because that's what their school tells them they have. That's not fair. And now you're sitting here telling this kid that they can't be who themselves because they dress a certain way.
Yeah. So not to make light of what you're talking about, but why don't they just create a unisex bathroom in schools?
Well, that then causes a whole lot of other problem in itself, though.
The only way it would work is if you have a unisex bathroom that is like a one-time, you go in and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no other, right? Because
it's like a single person's.
Yep. Yeah. There it is.
Because bathrooms are a big topic of this. Yep. And that's what always comes up with this legislation and these rules and regulations that come around this stuff. And look, I understand there's a lot of gender confusion and gender dysmorphia and all those things, but I think at the end of the day, we still have to acknowledge that what is truth and what is felt is felt. a biological man, right? If you're born a biological man, you're not a woman.
Fair.
You can identify as a woman,
Absolutely.
but you're not a woman.
Yep.
Right?
Can't ever bear kids, can't do nothing. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I have no problem using your pronouns, however you want your pronouns being used, but I had to have a hysterectomy last year. I was a female who had really serious reproductive issues from the day that I started my period up until last year when I got my hysterectomy. And so that is because I have quite a few trans friends, and so that is a conversation with my female trans friends that have had. You know that I support you. You know that I'll ride it dawn for you. I'm the first person who's gonna hit somebody for you. They want to get in your face, but you've never had a period. You don't know what that's like to go through that. And I'm not taking that away. I'm not calling you necessarily any less than a woman because of that. But still, at the end of the day, like you're not, and you'll never go through that.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, like you are a woman, but you're not. And I hate wording it like that because I don't read it all the way like that. But
look, here's the thing about it, right? Is you can't make everybody happy. And it's okay, and here's my position. I can only speak my position. Is I personally feel that there's a lack of owning it because life is tough right now, and there's all these different areas that like we're getting pulled in all these different directions. What am I? Look, I didn't lose my virginity until I was like 19. And I thought I was, like, a super unattractive person, and, like, I couldn't get chicks and all this shit until I was, like, in my early 20s. So if I'm sitting here being like, well, you know, back in the day, like, maybe I'm not meant to be a dude because I'm not hooking... Like, there's so many... You know, when you're so young, you're so susceptible to feeling these hardcore emotions. Yeah. But deep down, I feel like... Whoever you are, you just need to own who you are. Be that person. Do it unapologetically. Who cares what anybody else thinks? And don't make a big scene about it. Like, just fucking run it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's where I feel like there's all this noise around people who transgender. And like I said earlier, I identify as a heterosexual male, and I don't understand what that's like to feel the pressure and need to identify as a woman or as a female. Like, I don't understand that. And so, I feel like people in my position who don't understand it, I still respect those people. They can make whatever decision they want. Like, I'll shake their hand, I'll throw dap, I'll show love and respect, but I still don't fully understand what it's like to walk those shoes. So in the same, like, if someone is wanting to transgender, they don't know what it's like to walk in my shoes, to own my gender and run with it as my hormones naturally guided me to do. So it's just TNT all over the place. Like, you can't escape the tension of this conversation because even from my perspective, where I am biased, like, I can respect all different sides of it, I still don't understand all sides of it. And I just want people to own who they are. And I can recognize strength in that. Like, if someone can actually own who they are and completely run it, like, and I'm happy for you that you are you fully came out. Like, and that's important because, like, you are announcing to the world, like, this is who I am, and you're owning that. And so I respect that. And so it's just like people who are going through that, like with transgenderism or whatever it is, like, I respect that too, but it's like, I should still be respected even though I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, everybody...
You know, but the people who hate and, like, throw slander and, like, have this position of disrespect and they're like, you can not understand something and still respect it.
Sure.
You know, but some people are out there just throwing hate on the subject and disrespect. and they haven't walked in. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot to unpack with this whole conversation.
No, absolutely. I think if you take the time to see all sides of the story, like we were talking about earlier, being able to see every story from every lens, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to feel like that's a choice that you need to make for yourself. But if you can come at it and respect it from an educational standpoint, I genuinely think that would change the climate of this conversation so much. You know, you don't have to know how I feel, and I don't know how I don't have to know how you feel, but we do need to respect each other as human beings. Just try to survive in this world. That's all of us. All of us are just trying to survive.
Life's trying to kill us since we're born.
Amen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, look, this is a topic that's very controversial, and we don't need to draw it out much longer, but I think the last thing I'll say on it is this, I've always supported women's rights. I do. I love women. I believe that they have a place. Women's rights, abortions, all those things. This is it's her body, her choice kind of thing, right? And I feel like we're stepping into something that's concerning with that, where we have a lot of these biological men that are transitioning to women and now pushing them out of sports, pushing them out of a lot of things that are, competitive in that nature. And I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know what the solution is, but I just feel like women are losing here in this deal a little bit.
I can see where your point is to that. I think it's hard for me just because I have been around all of it, that I'm like, I've seen the straight people, trans people, gay people that throw it in your face and make it all about them, and you need to agree with their agenda.
Yeah.
But then I've also seen all those, the other side of all those same people where they're just like, fuck man, I'm just trying to be me. But then it's hard because, like you just said, us as biological women, we're getting rights taken away from us. We're getting hate on 1,000 different things, but then you don't see that happening with trans women necessarily, because it happens just in a different way, because again, they biologically don't have that.
With like abortion being taken away in states. And
Yeah.
by the way, America, you took steps backwards by taking away the freedom of choice. I'm just saying that really quickly.
So many steps backward. So many. Now, I'm the first one to agree that abortion was not meant as,
Form of birth control.
Yeah, like, don't be dumb about it.
Yeah.
But there are so many people, like me, if I would have gotten pregnant, I would have died. There is no way that me physically as a woman and everything I had going on, I would have never been able to handle it. I would have died.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I don't know what I would have done if that would have happened to me, and I didn't have that choice to be able to just medically be safe. That is terrifying to me. And to know that there's people in, southern states specifically that, there's a bit of touch and go situations with family members and such like that now these poor women they can't do anything about it. And that's heartbreaking, and it's terrifying.
It is.
Who the fuck are you as a government or a country or whoever to make those kind of decisions? I don't get that. But then that is where I go a little bit feminist, where I'm like, well, that's men for you, because men are running shit. And obviously I don't feel like all men are the problem, but then you don't have women that are out there in that position that can make those decisions for us.
Yeah, I know we opened up a whole nother can of worms with that sentence there.
As we say, we weren't going to go into politics. We certainly did. Look, I mean, again, I support women's rights, right to choose, all that stuff. I'm a man that believes in freedom and liberty, and you can do what you want within reason, right? I mean, I'm not saying you can go out and start opening fire in the streets, right? There obviously is some ramifications, but freedom needs to be respected, and there is some parameters to it, and, we could go on and on about that topic. I don't know if we really want to do that.
So back to Erin, okay?
Hi.
You have such a great personality. You are definitely somebody who is not afraid to tell it how it is.
No, sir.
I can tell.
Knowing your father, I wonder where you get that from.
But however, like, it's not always easy to tell how it is and be confident about it, because sometimes you're going to get lashback or whatever. So I want to ask you, like, what was the last thing or subject that you had to speak frank about it and, like, let people know how it is from your perspective?
My sexuality. 110%.
And you said that was recent that you came out.
Yeah. So, I had come out as bi to everybody in my whole life. Oh gosh. Actually, around the time that, you came around was actually when I started, telling my friends and my family, like, hey, like, I like girls and I like boys. Like, it's just, I'm an equal opportunist is like what I like to call myself.
Okay.
And so then the older I got, I realized that was not the case. And that I was just pretending to try to fit society. And so last year when I did come out, I had a lot of friends and a lot of dudes that I used to date and stuff like that look at me and be like, you're not gay. Like, you did this, or we dated, or whatever the fuck not. And I'm like, so? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
And then it's you're confused, or you don't know what you want, or in reality it's I did know exactly what I wanted.
I'm just
the
brave
entire
enough to
time.
say it now.
Yeah, I finally have the balls to not be worried about if somebody cares. Or I think my biggest thing was that, being seen in public like that. Again, I worked at Harley Davidson for years. I have a very Red Wing family and stuff like that. So to be able to go to a family barbecue and be holding hands and kissing a girl, it's not really something that I thought was okay. Obviously, I was very gravely mistaken, and I love my friends and family so much. Thank you so much for all of the support y'all give me. But that is not what I thought it was going to be like. And now that I did come out, and I had a girlfriend last summer, and, going out in public and stuff and having people stare at you and having people look at you and be like, ugh, seriously? I'm like, it's fucking 2023, people. 2022 at the time. You're telling me that I can't sit here and have a girlfriend, but y'all can out here be doing all sorts of other things? Yeah. Like, I don't get that. I don't get it. And I think that ever since I fully came out, it's a huge topic that everybody brings up with me all the time.
Well, one thing I would like to say while we're on this, as I've identified earlier, I fucking love people who are gay, lesbian, and all that shit, but they own it. I just like people who own it. Yeah. Because it's like gay people are fabulous, okay? And I mean that authentically. Like, they're some of the most fun people to hang around with, and when I get when a gay guy hits on me, I may have some kind of like physical, like I wear like an anklet thing, so like, I could see how that could translate, but like
a little metro.
Wait a minute. Because you wear a mosquito bracelet, you're saying that gay guys think you're homosexual?
Well, because I feel like a lot of guys won't wear anklets.
I mean, I don't wear shorts
or whatever it is. So here's the point that I'm trying to make on that is that
where you're going.
That I take it as a huge compliment, and I support it, right? Like, I'm not going to hate on anybody for owning themselves, and I feel like that's the point that I want to echo. And Kev, you go next. Okay. But just people need to own it. Whoever you are, who cares what people think? Get around people that support you, because there are those haters out there, those people who want to put you down in order to make themselves feel high, and fuck those people. Yep. But own who you are and be authentic about it. I'll respect the fuck out of you, regardless of whatever it is.
Amen.
Could be better said. I mean, I just can't disagree with that. I respect. I have so many great friends of all sides of the world. Gay, lesbian, queer, you name it. I mean, I had a great time sitting down with mayoral candidate Leslie Herod, who identifies as queer, and I didn't really understand what that meant. Versus being gay or lesbian or bi or whatever. There's just so much terminology that I don't personally understand, and that's fine. I like to learn about it. And from my research, I love the gay community. I think they're, like you said, they make everything fabulous, and they own it. And look, the Supreme Court didn't recognize gay marriage until 2000. Oh, I'm gonna get fucking grilled on this.
Was it
2015? 2015.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yes.
Nice. So that was an SLCO.
Which, look, I agree with it. I understand. Homosexuality makes sense to me. I understand it. We've seen it. We've seen it in nature. We've seen it amongst humans for a long time. You can't help.
The Romans were doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the biggest empire ever.
Yep.
Religion has convoluted this whole thing, and a lot of people would say, "Well, Kev, also with the trans movement." Fair enough, but all I'll say on it again, not to bring it back to the trans stuff, they fought a long time for civil rights and equality and marriage and things like that. And I understand religion dictates, or contradicts what's going on there. They, say God doesn't, this is the way it's supposed to be, this, that, and the other. But the fact remains, you can't change who you're in love with, who you're attracted to. I 100% support that. I 100% agree with that. And I think that's one thing I'll say, because I've talked to a lot of my gay friends. I have a lot of lesbian friends that are much older, and they're like, man, the trans community kind of showed up and they just immediately demanded these same kind of rights. It's like, man, we've been fighting for our rights for 7 decades, 8 decades, So I guess that's where I side a little bit more with some of my gay and lesbian and queer friends, and understand the battle that they went through. And then all of a sudden, these guys just show up and it's supposed to be okay,
Can I just say one thing about the trans stuff is the sports. Like
we talked about this already.
Yeah, but I just feel like there should be like a whole league. I don't know if there's enough people to fill that league, but for a M to F to join a female sports league, like there is an unfair advantage there.
I personally think it's how long you've been transitioning. If you've been transitioning for, let's say, 10, 15 years, you have 10 times more estrogen that's pumping through you than you do testosterone. That is one of everybody's biggest conversations on this about is how, testosterone, makes you, bigger, stronger, whatever, whatnot. And that's then what gives.
What about like bone structure?
There's a biological difference.
Yeah, but there's women that are built like men too. Biological women. There's women that are built like y'all.
And they're beefy. Yeah, there is some beefy ass women out there.
There is, but the percentages aren't nearly as much as.
No, absolutely, 110%. But I don't see where. And a lot of this for me is more seeing it than doing research about it. Right? It's just. I know women, like biological women, that will do more on a football field than a man ever could. Mm-hmm. But I also know biological men, that can move and dance and, twist in all ways that women that women can't either.
Yeah.
I don't think that isn't all the way fair. So then why is that like a chord of controversy? Because it is. Absolutely. As Erin Noel Pettigrew, people want something to bitch about.
Okay.
And that's what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And fuck that.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute.
If you just want to bitch about shit.
I think they just. So what was it? The Penn State, the
I know
swimmer?
where you're going with that.
Oh yeah.
Is that was one of the biggest things that brought up the college sports and stuff like that. That swimmer was, in my personal opinion, was just trying to live her truth of being a female, and so she was on the female swimming team or whatever sports team it was. Granted, to your point, biologically she did have an advantage. You're right. Okay.
Well, okay.
And so, but again, to my other point earlier, she hadn't, as far as I knew from what I read about the story at the time, is she hadn't been transitioning that long. So you still have so much testosterone pumping through your body that's going to be the advantage.
So an M to F should only compete in sports in what they've deemed their rightful gender after like 15 years of working on this, like hormonally and all that. Like, is that? Yeah, I mean, I know that when you word it like that, then I'm like, oh no, that doesn't work like that. But it's hard. That's the thing about this whole subject. There's no right answer. Okay, and we're just having a conversation about it. Yeah. And so like there's no right answers here, and hopefully that community and all communities, when you're listening into this, it's all coming from love. Yeah. And of course. It's all coming from curiosity, right? Because like women are upset too. but like, you know, straight up women who have periods
Yep.
and stuff like that, like they're upset about things, and so like to wrap up that conversation, like there is a lot of tension that's built around this. And I'm just going to go back to a point that I said earlier. Everyone should be able to express their freedom of who they feel they are and then be that person authentically. And we should all support each other in the pursuit of happiness. Because ultimately that's what it is, right? Is like people just want to be happy. Like they want to be happy in life. They want to feel fulfilled. And that's what they have to do to feel fulfilled. You know, so that's how I'll wrap that up.
I agree with it to an extent. You know, I still believe in what's truth, you know. And like we talked about, you know, again, you're not, if you're born a biological man, you're not a woman.
Yeah.
And
you're not a cis woman.
You're not. You know, you can't bear a child. You don't have, you know, you can get surgeries and cut a hole and do all these things. You're not, that doesn't make you a woman. Yep. Right? Do you agree with that?
No, I do. No, 110%. And I think I agree more with it with the M to F than I do the F to M, because for purposefully the childbearing aspect of it. I think that is one of the biggest actual differences between men and women, is that one of us can have kids and one of us can't. Other than that,
Science.
I really don't feel like there's a whole lot of difference. I mean, yeah, we can be built a little bit different or whatnot, but all humans are built differently, whether you're male or female. But that reproductive part of it, that's a non-negotiable. Like you can't argue that. But I think if you can educationally and respectfully come at it, then you can be a respectful and educated cis person. But then same way with the trans community, you can be a respectful and educated trans person as well, saying, "Hi, I do identify as a trans woman, but I am not a woman."
There it is.
Yeah, you have to identify as a, so like how you keep saying, you know, I'm a heterosexual male. You're a heterosexual cis male. You know, that's that's how you identify, because you are biologically.
What is cis? What is that?
So I would love to tell you what it actually, like, what the.
So if I want to be 100% specific, I need to identify myself as a heterosexual cis male.
Yeah, because cis, when you say that I'm a cis male or I'm a cis female because I was born a female, and I'm going to stay and identify as a cis.
You still are a female.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, and I don't plan on changing that. I don't plan on identifying as anything different. I am who I am from who I was born.
Why wouldn't it just be male and female though? Why do we need that extra?
Well, because to go to like what we were just saying is that, you know, trans women can be women all day long, but you can't have kids, so that doesn't make you a cis woman.
Right. So okay. So you could be a trans woman, but that doesn't make you a trans female or a trans male. You're either male or female at birth, right?
Oh yeah. No. Oh, okay. Now I'm lost.
Well, I mean, because you said cis male,
Cis.
Or is it cis?
Cis,
Yeah.
cis male, cis female. What is? Explain to me what that means again.
So a cis male is, I was at my birth, I am a male based on my genitalia.
Okay.
And I continue to identify as a male into my adulthood. So because I identify as a heterosexual male and I was also born a male, I would identify as a heterosexual cis male because I have always been. So I guess the cis means that you have always been that gender.
You've always identified as the gender you were born with.
Okay. I didn't know that term.
Me neither.
That's where I'll go to then be dicey with the trans women, is where I'll call you a woman, but you are a trans woman. You are not a biological. So biological and cis, same difference.
Well, and I hope that is that offensive?
To some.
To some trans, yeah.
Is it?
110%, yeah. But then that's part of the, you know, problem, or not problem, but that's part of the tension, you know, of it.
So when a lot of folks say trans women are women, what's your reaction to that?
That they are women. They're just.
What are they identifying
They're not
as?
cis
though?
women.
But
Yeah,
what are they identifying as?
Well, they're identifying as cis women, which
which they're not.
Yeah. And so I think that it's so dicey, but I also think it's extremely circumstantial too. Because like I said, I have quite a few trans friends, but I have quite a few trans people that I know I am not a fan of. And it's because of that. It's because they try to shove that down your throat that I am a male or I am a female. When, like you were saying earlier, there's people who have fought so hard for where they are in life, and then just because you want to be called a girl or a boy, then now you have to shove that down my throat? No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Well, Erin, I really do have to thank you for your input on all this. I mean, the experience that you have, and you've thrown a lot, like I've learned a lot during this conversation. And I appreciate all the stances that you've taken, and also, you know, for yourself as well. To segue, because we always like to ask every single guest that comes on this show this question.
Okay.
And I feel like you're going to have some great input.
Cool.
So, if you could give one piece of advice to humanity for everybody on this planet, so everybody can be better tomorrow, what would that piece of advice be?
To cut yourself some slack. To give yourself way more room to make mistakes and to make errors and to learn. I think that humans don't realize that we learn every day. The day that you stop learning is the day that you should be dead because you are learning every single day and you are changing every single day. If you put too much pressure on yourself to fit in whatever box that you're supposed to fit in, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life. Give yourself that ability to be wrong, to make that mistake, to not be the greatest person that day, but tomorrow when I wake up, I'm going to try to do better from what I did yesterday. One of the biggest things that I think that I grew up around is too harsh of opinions on something. So like if I didn't have like an outfit that my parents liked, whether it was appropriate or whatever the reason they didn't like it, that I took that so hard. And then for the next couple of years now, every little thing that I put on, I'm like, oh God, like, is that right?
Is this the appropriate outfit? Did
the
hues match?
Yeah, and when I should just be like, no, this is what I want to wear today, or this is how I want to be today. But you can't do that when you are so subjected to being told this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, no, give yourself that opportunity to learn and figure out what that means for you, and don't let anybody tell you that you're wrong because of that. I make mistakes every single day. I learn from my mistakes every single day, and sometimes I repeat those mistakes, and it's okay. At least I know that I'm trying, and that might not be enough for some people, but it's enough for me. And if you can go to sleep at night knowing that, hey, I cut myself a break today because today was a hard day and I probably shouldn't have handled it like that, shit. All right, let's try this again tomorrow.
I like that. I really do. And so, to my advice on top of your advice, which is great advice, is give yourself a break. You know, let's all take a deep breath and allow ourselves to live a little bit. Because here's the thing, and I mean what I'm about to say. Everyone has opinions about everything. But at the exact same time, as much as people are outwardly judging, no one is more critical inwardly than yourself. And this is another cliche.
You're your own worst critic.
But it needs to be said, because what all the other people are thinking is a projection of how they feel internally. And I'll give credit to my mama. Thank you, Mama. She taught me when I was very young that other people's opinions don't matter. These people are projecting their own emotions upon the reality that is around them. And so if you are solidified in yourself, you know who you want to be, you know who you are as a person. We all make mistakes. We are all imperfect, right? Like, all of us are imperfect. So give yourself a break and whatever anyone else externally is saying is just noise. Like, whatever people say about you, even Kev, like, if you were to say stuff about me, like, technically that's noise. If I say shit about you, technically that's noise from me to you.
I say shit about you all the time.
I know. And so it's like one of those things, like, how far do you want to take external input? Like, how much are you going to allow external input to affect your internal? You should internally go through the motions. And if you internally are confused about something, or you're internally conflicted about something, then like, cut yourself some slack, to go back to your advice. Because what anybody else thinks, they're fucked up. Yeah. Like, if anyone out there is spending the time and energy to throw hate, to throw disrespect, slander, or like negative slurs at you because you are who you are, think about who is that coming from? Mm-hmm. Anyone who ever is so offended by my opinion, I feel like they are weak, because they're so weak within themselves that they are reacting to the external world. So people who react to the external world project against it, right? So if you are solidified internally, and you are internally you are facing a huge mountain that you need to climb, that society doesn't understand, but you need to climb this mountain, then just climb that mountain. Because anyone who is throwing slander, they are not on their equilibrium. Those people are not solidified in themselves. I don't understand everything, like I've said on this podcast, but I never outwardly project like negativity toward these struggles, because I'm not going through that. So that's my whole point, and I know I said a lot there to say it, but basically, if people react to your proactive pursuits, then they are weak. They are below your proactive pursuits. They're reacting to your action, right? So give yourself a break if times are hard. Like, everyone else is hard on us. We don't have to be hard on ourselves. We could be critical, but we don't need to be hard on ourselves.
I think it's so much easier said than done, though. I mean, I think a lot of us grew up like that, with whatever trusted adult we had telling us that, you know, other people's opinions don't matter, fuck them, be you. That is so much easier said than done, though.
Oh, yeah.
And again, to go back to it, humans are, you know, have that herd mentality. You don't want to feel like you're going to get isolated from your herd for being just you. And so I think it takes a really strong person to be able to actually implement that other people's opinions don't matter. I am the first one, I will say it to all of you here right now, I might love myself and I might be able to tell everybody to fuck off, but my feelings get hurt too.
Of course.
I've had people, since I've come out at the bar, you know, we're having these conversations, and outright to them, I'm like, oh yeah, fuck that, like, it doesn't bother me. I get home, I'm crying for the rest of the night, because that shit hurts. That shit sucks. I mean, ultimately it doesn't change who I am, but that shit still hurts, and that sucks. And other people's opinions and other people's words do hold so much over people.
But does it need to?
But I think it's how long you let it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like one thing that, thank you, Mama, is that honor your feelings, respect your feelings, but then decide what you're going to do with those feelings. Does not mean that you have to keep it going. Let yourself be mad. Let yourself be hurt. You know, have that, you know, emotion about those opinions, but then to your point, it doesn't mean that then those opinions have to ruin you for the rest of that day or the rest of the week or your life.
I'm almost saying fuck those opinions.
Yeah.
Like whoever it's coming from, people will project because their own lives fucking suck. Like, most of the time when people are coming at me with stuff, I'm like, okay, you're bitching at me because of my style or who I am, because you're not confident in who you are. And so fuck that. Like, your opinion doesn't mean shit. I don't know. That's being blunt on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to, to your point. It's easier said than done. Repetition is the mother of skill, of course. And anytime you're in a public light or you're subject to a topic that is going to be judged and scrutinized from a very public view, if you will, family, bars, what have you, whatever it is, repetition is going to be the mother of skill on that, right? Going back to the own it, being unapologetic to yourself, things of that nature. I'd refer back to a segment that Jocko Willink did where he said, good, people are telling you suck and you're never going to make it and you're weak, good. You're getting hated on because you just came out and people are judging you, good. Look, again, it is easier said than done. I understand that because when I was young, I never understood that. It took a lot of years of and being in the public light and doing this show and just seeing some of the feedback, right, and that people have. I like it. Good. I kind of adopt that mindset. But it's just not that easy. So I would agree with you there. Repetition is the mother of skill, but being unapologetically yourself and owning it at all times and being confident in who you are, I think is the best approach that we can have that's tangible, right?
Absolutely.
Because the haters, they're not going anywhere. They're going to keep coming.
Oh, absolutely. And they're going to get worse and worse. And every little thing you do is going to have, somebody's going to say something positive, negative, and including yourself. You're always going to have something to say about what you're doing. I mean, getting ready today, picked my outfit like 6 different times. And I'm sitting there looking at myself.
Well, you look great tonight.
Thank you. I'm sitting there looking at, and that was my point. I'm over here like, these 2 men would let me walk in here with hoodies and a sweatpants on and be like, girl, we're just happy you're here to talk.
Exactly.
But for me, in my own noggin, I'm like, ugh, nope, I need to be like put together and all of that. And that's
comfortable and how you want to present yourself.
And I think that it's hard because, you grow up hearing so much. And so then when you finally are at that age where you can start making those decisions for yourself, it's hard to get what you grew up with or what you learned with, out of your head. But that's something that I will shout out my dad for all day long because Mike, you're the shit, man. But what I will say is that when I came out, this might make me a little emotional. He was definitely hands down my biggest supporter because he didn't get it. He didn't grow up in a generation where that was okay to come out. He didn't grow up in an area back east where that was okay to do that. And his daughter looked at him and was like, listen, you're either going to get with the program or you're not going to have a relationship with your daughter. And he said, well, fuck that. My daughter is my best friend. Yeah. I will make sure that I have that relationship with her. So he constantly is asking me.
Respect.
And like, what's the best way to come about this? Please teach me. It's going to take me a second to learn. And so please forgive me for, the ignorance that I could have about it.
That's being respectful, though.
Yeah, absolutely. 110%. But it's the want to be able to do that. Because I have other family members that don't want to learn and don't want to understand why I choose to live the life I do with anything that I do. And so I have never been more grateful to know that I have 2 people that raised me and that all they want to do is learn how to be better as humans or as parents or something so that their daughter knows that they're always going to have her back. And that is something that was huge. I mean, because with my mom, I really kind of just looked at her. It was like, hey, finally told everybody. She's like, yeah, cool. My dad, I wrote a huge letter to. And it was it was a bit of a rough letter, but he sat there and he read that letter over and over again. It hangs in his room. He pulls it down, he reads it over and over again, and he thanks me all the time. He's like, thank you for doing that, and thank you for
honest.
And having the balls to come to me even though I'm sorry that you felt like that you couldn't. And I think that was the number one thing. When he came home from work after I gave him that letter, that was the first thing he did. He grabbed me and he's crying. My dad, that's not something you get from him. And he comes up to me and he grabs me and he's like, the biggest part in that letter that bugged me, honey, was you telling me that you didn't feel like you were going to have that support. that is in being my dad. You know, he came out it the way he did. He's like, well, that's bullshit. Like, I don't know why the fuck you felt like that.
Yeah.
But really, he's meaning, like, you know, I'm sorry that you felt like that, and I wish that there was something that all of us could have done better for you not to feel like that.
It probably wasn't his fault. It was, like, society's fault. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
To be misunderstood in that whole genre of sexuality and... Yeah, it's tough.
It's hard.
It's tough.
And being young and being in two completely different worlds. I mean, that man raised me about as opposite as he could have ever have been raised. And same thing with my mom. My mom was nowhere near raised the way that they raised me. And I thank both of them for that every day, because both of them thank me for that every day. Being the adult that I am now, both of them are like, I learned so much from you, and I wish I could have been like you at your age, or I wish that I could have felt like I could have that conversation with whoever it is, like, good for you. And then I have to constantly tell them, you know, you did that, right? Like, it might have been in a way where we didn't understand that that's what we were doing for each other at the time, but now looking back on it years later, y'all taught me that. Y'all taught me to be myself, to even with you two be like, fuck you. Like, you might be my mom and my dad, but if you're not going to have my back, get fucked. And I couldn't be more grateful for that.
That's epic. That is epic.
Yeah, take it back to the roots, of course.
Always.
And, you know, your dad, of course, is from my neck of the woods, so us New Englanders, we're pretty unapologetically ourselves and a little bit overly aggressively proud of it.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best way to describe it.
But I think it's the best people to learn from. The people that can honestly just look at you and be like, fuck off. God, good for y'all. Because I can do it too, but again, I go home and cry about it. Because, you know, I might be able to be strong on the outside, but words still hurt. I'm still young.
Yeah.
That shit still sucks.
Well, you're human.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that too.
Everyone is going through their shit. I mean, I have nights where I'll break down, and it's just like, even if it's just like staying consistent and like, because I want to motivate people, you know, overcoming opiate addiction. Like, I don't know how much you heard it on the podcast. Like, and I bring it up often on the podcast, but we're all struggling with something, and it's difficult, and working and paying bills and living in society and feeling comfortable in our own skin is not always easy, and it's okay to break down. And I really love all the layers that we talked about on this episode. It was, you know, we were really open, and we weren't discriminating against anything.
No.
But we might have questions. And that's okay, but hopefully this podcast can be an example for anyone listening that there's a specific way that you can talk about this stuff without being offensive. You know, like I had mentioned, I don't understand everything fully, but I still have respect for it. And I feel like your advice for humanity is something that I want to echo at the end of this show, and that's that everyone deserves to give themselves a break. Life is not always easy, and it's going to be difficult, and why be so hard on ourselves? Like, we all deserve to give ourselves a break and to be weak. Like, we all can be weak and vulnerable, and that's okay. Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that.
I agree with that, Art, 100%. You know, I think we did touch on a lot of great things, and I appreciate you being open with us and sharing your opinions, of course. And you know, before we end the show, you know, this is kind of your opportunity to tell our viewers and listeners about you and where they can find you and where they can connect with you.
Well, I'm on Instagram mainly as one of my favorite platforms to post on, just being a 24-year-old girl loving to get pretty and take pictures places. I also do OnlyFans as well, so that's another place that you could find me if you wanted to. I think that one for me personally is a lot about being confident in my body and being confident as a woman. I don't feel like, because I don't go all nude on my OnlyFans. I do lingerie stuff and love every minute of it. Okay. Because for me, I love getting ready and taking those pictures and feeling hot and sexy for myself. Give a fuck if it actually fucking goes somewhere or does something. But to know that I gave myself that self-confidence is huge. And as a woman, that is something that's so hard to find, that self-love for yourself with every inch of you. And so I couldn't be more thankful for the social media platforms I have right now with Instagram and OnlyFans, because it teaches me every single day to love myself no matter what. And if I think I look pretty and I think I look hot, then girl, you look pretty and you look hot. Do. So good for you.
Energy matters, and it is conveyed. People can feel energy. We will leave both the Instagram and also the OnlyFans in the show notes down below. That's correct. And Erin, I really want to, I say this with authenticity. Thank you so much for coming. It was great to get to know you better. I know you know Kevin better than you know me, but it was awesome getting to know you on this platform, which is, it's weird because it's public, but like it's personal at the same time. And so thank you for being open, honest, and authentic during this program. Fucking epic human being. Keep doing your shit. Keep running it. Everybody out there that's tuning in this world, please be good to yourselves, because
you know you deserve it. You know you deserve it. Be good to yourselves. Erin, thanks so much again for coming down for a visit.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is hands down one of the coolest things I've ever fucking done. So you two keep doing you. The fuck? Like, y'all are out here spreading the coolest positivity I have ever fucking seen. So I couldn't be more honored or proud to be on this podcast. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. And man, let's wrap this thing up. Mike, I love you.
Dad, I love you. Mom, I love you.